All right, yep. I got volume. Everything's on. Just unable to work from software to YouTube, I guess. But I can still stream. All right, well. Make sure everything's still on here. Cannot remember which one I want to start out with. All came back up and not in the order I wanted. All right. I have everything. Okay, well. Not that I didn't have any troubles doing starting, but Stoney Progressive, I got it all figured out. We're going to stream on the new one and hope anybody that might have had the dozen of social media clips I tried to drop today see the new comment with the new video, or they just see my page and see this new one. So I will start out slow and hope we get it a normal night, like 4 or 5 people watching at peak. So what's up, Jeff? It came up and is working. But I want to start out Stoney Progressive with my day off. I started out my day with some White House press briefings, and that was just so exciting. I think we all have to enjoy it. Let's start out with Jen today. Of course, the best part of Jen is her this kind of bluntness. She's not hilarious, but she's pretty great. And I think today, my first day actually watching live stream, this was my favorite clip.
But what the point he was making is that as recently as 2020, as we know, the former president was trying to work with local officials to overturn the vote count and not have ballots counted. And we have to be very eyes wide open about that and clear-eyed that that is the intention potentially of him
Blaze went
and
up and catch some news clips.
Party.
I got one more on the same subject.
Because yesterday, obviously, voting rights hit a wall in Congress right now without the votes for the filibuster rules to be changed. And given the conversation you just had about other avenues that could be taken, if there are no changes in terms of voting rights legislation going forward, the president does still feel confident that the elections this fall will be legitimate.
Yes. Go ahead.
Thank you, Jen. Just following up real quick on this legislative stuff. Yesterday, the president blamed Republicans for blocking his agenda, called them obstructionists, but he admitted that he hadn't reached out to any on the issue of voting rights. So now, given where things stand with these two bills, will he be reaching out to any Republicans, seeing that this bipartisan effort on the Electoral Count Act might end up being the only game in town on that?
Well, we don't accept that, but I will also say that there has been discussions between Democrats and Republicans for months now about voting rights legislation. They have been invited multiple times.
I don't actually care about this. It's more the setup. The end of that guy's question was pretty nice. Nice little just abrupt push away from. I've seen clips from her, but watching her live she's fun.
Times a part of the conversation, reached out to, engaged with, 16 of them have supported the protection of voting rights legislation in the past and declined to do that this time. They are not uninformed about exactly what this legislation would do, and they've always been welcome to be a part of the conversation. They decided not to, and I think that's important for people to understand.
Real quick question on crime, then I want to ask about Ukraine. Ahead of the president's meeting with the mayor's conference tomorrow, some of the biggest headlines this week have been the New York City woman being pushed to her death in a subway, the woman in LA being murdered allegedly by a career criminal. I saw this morning that you went on TV and reiterated the president's position. Yes, on Fox. Thank you for joining us. That he wants to fund police and make clear that crime is something that this White House takes seriously. But you guys have not weighed in on the actions from these prosecutors. So why hasn't the administration weighed in on some of these new policies from DAs who are downgrading certain crimes or refusing to prosecute certain crimes, given that it could undermine some of these broader efforts that your White House is making to show that it takes crime seriously?
Well, one, there is a law enforcement component and a justice component of the federal government, right? The president has been crystal clear, I think, and almost every time he's spoken about this, that he believes that more needs to be done by local leaders. We're going to support funding to ensure they have that, whether it's local cops programs or other programs to support surge response teams, as we're seeing different kinds of crime in different parts.
It's a long-winded roundabout.
Parts of the country, and that will continue to be what he advocates for. But I wouldn't expect he's going to comment on or engage in every local law enforcement action.
Moving on to Ukraine, bipartisan members of Congress from several different committees this week have been told in briefings that U.S. officials believe Russia is likely to invade Ukraine, despite this continuing narrative that Putin has not made up his mind. They're saying that
a narrative that you're forecasting your opinions of war hungriness on another country's leader with a narrative.
Satellites, signals, intelligence, and human intelligence, it's all telling the same story. What they're seeing and hearing is about to happen. And the president's comments last night seemed to corroborate that to a certain degree, where he said, my guess is Putin will move in. So why wouldn't the U.S. introduce sort of level 1 sanctions as proactive deterrents and then remove them if Russia de-escalates?
Why are we protecting Ukraine from Russia? They've been a part of Russia several times through the last 100 years, just natural history. And yet we're talking about preeminent striking on defense? Is that what she's suggesting? Is that what she's suggesting?
Well,
is it?
One, I said 2 days ago, we're now at a stage where Russia could at any point launch an attack in Ukraine. And we've been pretty transparent about what we're seeing, both in our briefings, but also in our engagements with all of you and in our conversations with our European partners. I would note that this morning the Treasury Department did announce sanctions on individuals who've engaged in influence activities directed by the Russian governments. This action was part of our ongoing, long-standing efforts to counter Russia's network of influence efforts and to expose Russia's dangerous, threatening, and ongoing campaign to destabilize Ukraine. These individuals are at the heart of Russia's destabilizing campaign in Ukraine, and we stand united with the Ukrainian government. We are not waiting to take action to counter Russia. We see what they're doing, we're disrupting it, and these actions are also, of course, separate and distinct from the broad range of high-impact, severe measures we and our allies are prepared to impose in order to inflict significant costs should they invade.
The president said he thinks Putin de-escalates.
Well, one, I said 2 days ago, we're now at a stage where Russia could at any point launch an attack in Ukraine. And we've been pretty transparent about.
Are we really saying that? Is that really what the White House stance is we think Russia at any point is going to strike? That's crazy. This lady is. We are so anti-Russia that it's scary, and we're now talking about going to war because we think they're about to.
What we're seeing both in our briefings, but also in our engagements with all of you and in our conversations with our European.
This is war with a major power that China will back over aerial disputes.
and partners. I would note that this morning the Treasury Department did announce sanctions on individuals who have engaged in influence activities directed by the Russian governments. This action was part of our ongoing, long-standing efforts to counter Russia's network of influence efforts and to expose Russia's dangerous, threatening, and ongoing campaign to destabilize Ukraine. These individuals are at the heart of Russia's destabilizing campaign in Ukraine, and we stand united with the Ukrainian government. We are not waiting to take action to counter Russia. We see what they're doing. We are disrupting it. And these actions are also, of course, separate and distinct from the broad range of high-impact, severe measures we and our allies are prepared to impose in order to inflict significant costs should they invade.
The president said he thinks Putin will test the West. Isn't that in some way already happening? And why are we spending this time debating what to do?
And now we're going to talk about, again, going to war over a speculation that the president thinks that Putin will do something. That's like, what is that, like fifth person? Like, what how many people are paid by the war industry? Like, I'm glad I can't see your face because I just really don't like you already. That you're just, why are we not at war yet? Why are we not at war yet? We could be at war. Let's go to war with Russia. That would be a good thing during a pandemic that we're still pretending is mildly out of control or wildly out of control. And we can't just say that it is a thing, and we need to start being smart about it instead of being team picking about it. But look at this, is just now she wants to go to war. Why aren't we at war yet?
After an invasion, rather than mitigate the risk of one in advance of that happening, especially because this buildup is already causing economic consequences for the U.S., having to send additional aid. Shouldn't the threat of an invasion also carry serious economic consequences?
Well, I just referred to Treasury sanctions we announced this morning, right? We've also provided more assistance to Ukraine than any year in history, including defense assistance. Those are. But again, what we're making decisions on based on decades of experience the president has and decades of experience of our foreign policy team and through consultation with our partners on what is going to be the most effective step. President Putin is going to make the choice he's going to make. Either he's going to decide to invade Ukraine and suffer severe economic consequences, or he's going to decide to engage in diplomatic discussions. It's important to remember who the aggressor is here. The aggressor is Russia and Putin. They are building up military troops. They are pushing out misinformation in Ukraine. That's who we need to keep our focus on and make sure.
They're putting out misinformation. That's fantastic. From the White House. The White House, the misinformation experts. Like literally, she's been rope-a-dope in this whole press conference. So her going up right now saying that Russia does misinformation while she's trying to rope-a-dope. I mean, this isn't great. This isn't what we want. Like, this is fantastic. I literally laughed so hard I thought the whole neighborhood heard me the first time I saw this. It was
educating the public about their actions. Go ahead.
Where do deliberations?
Yeah, and then she just, boom, go ahead. Done. We've done, son. That's fantastic stuff right there. She's great. I am happy with that lady. I might have to watch some more, of course, because I do not know how often she posts. I am new to her subject. So that was a pretty good little bit there. She, first of all, calling on a Fox person being surprised is crazy. Like, shouldn't you just be calling on a Fox person on a pretty regular basis? Like, you're the press secretary for the president. Fox News is like, I don't know, if you look at all news combined, there's still like 40% of news. If you like Google and Facebook is probably like another 40%. And then the other Main Street media and a little bit of other independent. But yeah, that's the news world we're looking in, and they really don't call on her that often. That it was a big deal. I'll be watching this on a morning by morning basis. She's mildly entertaining. There's no Sean Spicer. Spicy was great. He was a bulldog. He just attacked people. He's like, come on, man, I'm going to lie up here. I have to lie. Like, what do you want me to say? It was great. But in rebuttal, I shortly after finding that, somebody who I don't always agree with lately, I did support her, but she says some bad things. She says some things that we all don't agree with, but I think today was an exception to the
issue
rule.
that you've been in the lead on. It's a big issue. I know we don't have too much time, but I just would love your take because it's very much emerging as a big story, which is the whole situation. You know, it looks like we may be heading towards yet another entanglement in a foreign war with what's going on with Russia and Ukraine. Look, it's not a straightforward issue. My family's Hungarian. When the Soviets invaded Hungary and the West didn't come in to protect and fight back the Soviet forces, that caused a lot of, you know, left people with years of Soviet oppression. On the other hand, I think, would I be happy for my son to go and fight in Ukraine to protect their freedom? Frankly, no. And so the question I have for you is, how do we balance this? You know, we want to deter aggression, of course, but we don't want to get sucked into these military conflicts. You've got the intelligence services out there putting out all this information, looking like they're kind of wanting to take us into war again. What do we do?
Well, I think this brings us back to the last point, is our leaders should be acting in the best interest of the American people and our country. And unfortunately, in this White House, we have warmongers and people like Jake Sullivan and Tony Blinken, who were had a very strong hand in being the architects of regime change wars in Iraq, in Libya, in Syria. And they're the ones who are influencing the decisions that are being made by this White House. They are stoking tensions. They are escalating the situation that can only lead us down a more dangerous path that directly undermines the interests of the American people in our country. Let's be real about what we're dealing with here, Steve. We're talking about the United States and Russia, two great nuclear-armed powers in the world. There is only one place that conflict ends.
And then we can't have a fake bully fighting power. I mean, our military is like 5 times their size. It's ridiculous. And the Russia has been a fake war. Like we need, an opposing strike force since Napoleon. I mean, where does this end? It just means that we're going to have to pretend somebody else is our enemy, but we can't have Russia, Russia and the China connection isn't going to ever come up because we can't even consider that, even though China's another bully in the rough there who's going to attack us. They're not going to actually attack us because they make everything for us and capitalism rules all.
Ends in destruction of this world and life as we know it. Don't be naive. Don't be shy about pointing out exactly what is at stake. And that's what the American people need to know. And that's what people in the White House and leaders in Congress from both sides of the aisle refuse to tell them the truth about.
Very, very well said. We've got to kind of calm it all down. It goes back to what we were saying earlier. He talks about lowering the temperature, Biden. On this as well, he's raising it. Tulsi, thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Yeah. Don't have to agree with everybody all the time. You can definitely disagree and actually be quite frustrated with people. And politicians aren't necessarily great people. You don't get into it for all those reasons usually, but you have to agree with her on that. I would say take a journey down, of course, sticking with that, Red Indie Media. There are many good websites again down here. Mint Press News is always hitting something good, and Israel has been escalating things again. Very important here. But sticking with the topic, making a case of going to war with Ukraine. That's really what's on the plate again. It's where we're at. That's what we're looking at. And this is what's progressing currently in our world. We're thinking about going to war with Russia in the Middle East, and now again in Ukraine. We're poking any stokes that'll sit with the American people and they'll allow us to perpetuate war, and with the two countries that make the most weapons. So it does kind of make sense that we need to kind of get rid of some of those weapons so we can boost our tax dollars into the military funds, which make people like Putin, people like so many politicians who make money off of I mean, the Halliburton, Raytheon, and Boeing, General Dynamics bubble in America and France and England is pretty powerful. Those weapon companies don't sell trillions, making billions for their company, and themselves making hundreds of millions, usually $30–50 million on paper. So that you can say somebody like that's probably making 100 million a year on those contracts, and you got a dozen people doing that. That's what this is all about right here. It's not about protecting Ukraine. It's not about protecting anybody. We let countries fail and fall all the time. It's usually about oil, money, or just outright constant war. So thank you for Rad Any Media for having an article. Pull right into it. And as always, they have great stuff on here. I give them a shout every day, and I will on my live stream every night. Probably cut most of this out for clips, but speaking of clips, segue. But AOC was in Florida and got COVID, so I wanted to do something on her. I've had a few failed streams when I tried. Let's see if tonight's fails on me. I've had a hard time getting the proper connection, so I had to start a new stream. And last time it took about this time before they cut me. So AOC, this is her contact office, 202-225-3965. As always, I start with their contact. This clip will start out right with 202-225-3965. You can contact her office if she is full progressive on things like, you know, that the housing security during our pandemic, where she was on the street, you know, on the streets and sleeping and really fighting for us, and ran in to vote right when Mama Bear called her in and allowed her to do that demonstration for her props. So thank you for that. Her committee assignments, always impersonal, national security, international development, and monetary policy. Interesting, fun stuff there. I did take a couple hours off after doing all this research, so it's a little more fresh again. It was kind of an overload earlier today, all day dog, active, and doing this. Her voting history is mostly uneventful. Is basically what you expect for, you know. I mean, they cover her plenty on her voting history. When I looked at her, though, I think the most important thing is always to follow the money. Who's her top contributor right now? When you jump on this page, it's Alphabet Inc. Alphabet Inc. It didn't click with me right away. I guess it clicks with some. That's Google. That's YouTube. That's who I'm talking about right now. And again, they might cut me, but if they do, I'll just start in the stream. So they are currently her #1 overall in her career, and the #1 for the past 2 years. This is everything they have here. You can see, I don't know all of this. Nest, Jigsaw, Verify. I've heard Waymo, Capital, YouTube, of course, Android. This is their, you know, Google, the Google Cloud, Google Maps, all this, you know, Calico, I don't know what that is. Sidewalk, I don't know what that is. But this is them, and this is who is her #1. Google is her #1 financier. That's AOC. So yeah, she is one and in the people. She has no connections. That doesn't sit well with me in any shape or form. But that's where we're at. AOC. She got a good amount of change this past couple years. Doing really well on the income. Don't know why she spent almost $5 million. But a lot of her cash in hand goes to other Democrats in closer races, and most of them have been CIA, ex-CIA, or what they call the CIA Dems, who have heavy CIA connections. And even though her past is not CIA heavy, she does give her money pretty heavily to the CIA people. And again, top contributors right here: Alphabet Inc., University of Maryland, and University of California, Amazon. Yes, that's the top 5. That's really comforting. And I didn't do the research on this thing. That's why this is crashing, because it is not as good as it could be. When you go to PAX, it's always funny because she gets all that money from Amazon, and I mean, she gets these money from these major industries, but they don't call that a PAC. So she just gets money from industries. So that's why she's not PAC. You know, she's not sucked down to the PACs. But her career, it's all about, you know, University of Berkeley, Alphabet Inc., City of New York, Amazon, Apple, New York University, Microsoft, City University of New York, AT&T, Facebook. Man, AT&T, Facebook, Apple Inc., Amazon, Apple. Just, I mean, that's a rough page. That's a Kaiser Permanente. Oh, I shouldn't have scrolled down. I forgot about that one. That was Walt Disney, IBM, U.S. Postal Service, the U.S. government. What? Yeah. Okay. I'm done with that. That's AOC. She is a person, you know, personally funded, just from the grassroots, all from scratch. Everybody was going for her, and now you look at her top contributors, and it is a laundry list of who you don't want to be your top contributors to be a progressive. Everybody does become bought and paid, and she has made, that's not this one. She has made a lot of money on the donation station. Her elections have been not even close since she's taken over. This is not going to be probably a worry. She has a lot of people trying to take the money to push her is there. But they've tried before. They tried it right off the bat. The Democrats tried right off the bat, and Joseph Crowley did not give up. He might have got knocked out on the primary on a close race, but he did not give up on the election. He went back out there, even though he had lost. And this is a firm confirmation that they believed in her in that area. And she has done a couple pretty good publicity stunts. I'll give her that. And she definitely looks good on paper if you're a pro-cannabis. I would say that with her money coming from universities, that she probably wouldn't do anything outside of the Overton spectrum. Like, she's not going to do anything that's not socially acceptable on this, but she's allowed to go that far because her state has already made those steps as well. So that's AOC. She is not a grassroots candidate anymore. She is not undetached from massive amounts of corporate money. She has raised millions upon millions of dollars. And while she is more of a public figure now than an actual politician, I would say she's trying to be a persona.
Ocasio-Cortez is describing Republicans who are attacking her for taking a New Year's trip to Florida with her boyfriend. She responded to one critic saying, quote, "If Republicans are mad they can't date me, they can just say that instead of projecting their sexual frustrations onto my boyfriend's feet, you creepy weirdos." Joining us now to discuss is CNN political commentator and conservative blogger Mary Catherine Ham. And you know, Mary Catherine, Happy New Year to you. We were wondering, we were thinking, how do we wish her a Happy New Year? And we thought, let's wake her up early and talk about feet with her. So,
I'm fine with it.
What do you make of all this?
Well, first of all, I woke up like this, so I think you have an authority on people being sexually frustrated by my mere existence. It happens all the time, and I'm glad to be able to discuss this important issue with you. The plight of the super hot in America has long been ignored, and AOC has started a national conversation about this, and you know, I know we've all dealt with it, and by that I mean AOC and you, Brianna, and myself, and John. Well, and the point is, you know, we could start an organization or something. And just the other day, I noticed the IRS keeps sending me notices, even though I've never expressed any interest in them. And it's like, why are you so obsessed with me? But one day you wake up and you think to yourself, is there more to life than being really, really ridiculously good looking? I did it, and now I'm here. AOC did it, and now she's a congresswoman. And
Yeah, that's good enough for me. So that was pretty funny, though. Good for you, CNN. You actually had a comedy bit without trying to be too comic about it. That was quite funny. And she's a right-wing blogger, I guess. Conservative blogger. So she enjoyed attacking AOC. She was very, very much excited for it. But I have to agree with her. And again, you don't have to agree with the person. I bet if I listened to her or found out anything about Mary Catherine Hambone there, I wouldn't like her. But that was pretty funny. And CNN had a pretty good clip on there. And always got to see how she actually...
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
This was her most recent.
I've been serving in this body just under 3 years. In that 3 years, enormous amount has happened. But in response to the Republican leader's remarks, when he says that this action is unprecedented, what I believe is unprecedented is for a member of House leadership of either party to be unable to condemn incitement of violence against a member of this body. It is sad. It is a sad day in which a member who leads a political party in the United States of America cannot bring themselves to say that issuing a depiction of murdering a member of Congress is wrong, and instead decides to venture off into a tangent about gas prices and inflation. What is so hard? What is so hard about saying that this is wrong? This is not about me. This is not about Representative Gosar. But this is about what we are willing to accept.
She says that, but she's probably like the 15th person to say the same thing pretty much that day. And so this is about you. This is about your opportunity to say the same thing that all those ladies behind you already said today. You're already just saying it again, and nobody needs to hear this. I literally felt like I was going to listen to that whole thing today. It's not going to happen. Let's keep it short and sweet. But with all this criticism, she did get COVID. She did come down to Florida. She partied with her face off and in Miami area. And got COVID. And guess what? I got COVID. I had COVID about the same time she did. It was going around because there's a billion people down here for Christmas, New Year's, and it was a very packed area. And she got it, I got it, no big deal. But it's funny because she's a hypocrite of DeSantis and comes down here and parties in the state because it's open and wild. That's this
not just
right here.
The Republican leader, but I have seen other.
That one right there. So I think he gets
AOC
back.
was seen partying maskless. You're hearing more that she's been critical of your policy, but then she comes to Florida and enjoys, the state. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Well, I mean, look, I think if I had $1 for every lockdown politician who decided to escape to Florida over the last 2 years, I'd be a pretty doggone wealthy man, let me tell you. I mean, Congress people, mayors, governors, I mean, you name it. And it's interesting, though, the reception that, that some of these folks will get in Florida, because I think a lot of Floridians say, wait a minute, you're bashing us because we're not doing your draconian policies, and yet we're the first place you want to flee to basically to be able to enjoy life. And so I'm not surprised to see that continue to happen. I could tell you, I mean, there are probably about a half dozen governors who had restrictions on their people and then were spotted at various points in Florida. Some of it's been public, some of it's not been public, but people tell me these things, and so these things are spotted, and so that's just the reality that we're dealing with. I think I'm happy, though, that Florida's a place where people know they can come and they can live like normal people, they can make their own decisions. Fauci, again, he's railing against...
Come on down, get COVID. It's okay, no big deal.
the restaurants. I mean, these poor people have had, I mean, they've done very well in Florida because we protected them. But I mean, this is not an industry that's easy to do very well in. And he's singling them out as if that is somehow such a huge factor when there's all these other things that you could be pointing to. You know,
I point that he's done nothing for servers and bartenders, that he's opened up the entire country to come down here and absolutely destroy the service industry down here and stress the crap out of us out. He's giving money to teachers because that looks good on paper. He's giving money to police because that looks good on paper. Hasn't done anything for the industry, that he's incredibly stressed out and pushed it to the brink.
I just think it's wrong, but people know they can come, they can go get a beer. They're not going to have to show papers. They're not going to have to do anything. And look, just look at what we're seeing now. How big of a failure have vaccine passports been? Okay, if vaccine passports succeeded, you would not see a lot of the stuff that you're seeing in a lot of states that implemented them. And so all it served to do was discriminate against people based on an individual choice, create a two-tiered society. And yes, they are moving, like I said a couple months ago, they are moving to update that to say, in some parts, they're going to say you need a third shot to be able to do. So so those policies have not worked. And I think ultimately, look, people vote with their feet. I always say I'm so happy with our Floridians. I'm not asking for people to come move, because we've got great people. We've got a lot of great stuff going on. I think we're going to do a lot more great stuff. But the fact of the matter is, you know, if you look from July of 2020 to July of 2021, we led the country in where people were wanting to come to. And I think that that's a result of protection.
Warm weather, locked in your house, not wanting to be up north during the cold. Oh, you didn't include that at all because you have no concept of what these people are actually talking about. I talk to like 300 a day.
Protecting people's freedoms and making sure that we had a state worth living in.
Oh, I can't wait to leave. 2 more years, 1 more year, who knows? So that was his response, and I couldn't even leave him alone. Good for me. That was AOC. As much as I could handle, AOC. Congratulations, Stoney Progressives, we made it through it. Just think alphabet group when you think of AOC, alphabet letters, alphabet word salad. And she talks with her hands, so I guess maybe she's trying to sign something and let us all know that she's actually completely corrupt and corporate, but that's who she is. She is the alphabet group. We need to not put so much trust in the squad when they really were failed from the beginning. That's why they didn't go for force the vote. That's why they've lost us on so many issues. And we can move on now. So I'm gonna have to set up the next person. And while we set up the next person, let's lace the rest of this joint. I got my hand, and oh, that is not what I want to start with. We'll start out with something a little more depressingly lighthearted and move our way up.
Happy holidays, everyone. I'm Secretary of the Navy, Carlos Del Toro.
I just realized half of this is covered up, so I have to read it for you. Sorry. The U.S. Navy stores up to 250 million of fuel in tanks buried 100 feet above Ohana's sole source aquifer. In late 2021, toxic quantities of the fuel leaked from Red Hill Fuel Facility into naval water lines that provide water up to 93,000 people. On December 23rd, Naval Secretary Carlos Del Toro released this holiday.
Happy holidays, everyone. I'm Secretary of the Navy Carlos Del Toro. My wife Betty and I would like to wish all our sailors, Marines, civilians, and military families a happy and healthy holiday season. Whether you're at home in the States for the holidays or serving around the world, we are incredibly grateful for everything that you do.
Well, it's not the fuel itself that's making them sick. It's the fuel in the water that's making them sick. In fact, there was a press release that was released by the governor and the delegation, and I'm taking that request and their suggestions very seriously. And it's not an order, it's a request that's being made.
They need to shut down Red Hill immediately, like today, now.
They need to shut it down. They should have shut it down a long time ago. It should have never been there in the first place.
I think Del Toro and the Navy refusing to shut down Red Hill shows how much he doesn't care about us, the people. They know, and they've been knowing, that this is a disaster. They need to shut it down, decommission, defuel, just get it out of here. And don't put it anywhere else. We don't need it anywhere else on this island. It's already suffered enough.
Thank you, Empire Files. Abby Martin, absolutely amazing out there, and yeah, everything she does is fire. So that is infuriating.
Genghis Khan against the Jin dynasty, Alexander the Great against the Egyptians, or Napoleon against...
I should say, moving on to RT. I had to check this out. This is going to be a live reaction here while I finish this.
Against the Austrians, Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot is a bloodthirsty warrior with a mortal enemy, the public school teachers of Chicago. Things have been rocky since 2019, the same year Lightfoot took office, when the Chicago Teachers Union went on strike for better pay and resources. Now, with the Omicron variant on the rise, the teachers union is asking for very reasonable new health measures. Test positivity in Chicago has increased by 380% over the past month, with 600 kids testing positive every day. One of the few tests Chicago students have done well on. Recently, 18% of the take-home tests that came back from Chicago public school students were positive. Now, under an agreement that the CTU reached the mayor about a year and higher than the previous week. By that metric, schools across the city would now be closed if the agreement were still in place. But unfortunately for the teachers, that agreement expired in August. Now, to be clear, the 18% figure is only based on the nearly 11 we never got results from. I know it's a frustrating situation, but these take-home tests were technically homework, so we can't get too mad at the kids who didn't do them the right way, or at all. Teachers have very low expectations when it comes to the homework. I know this. I got through 7th grade math by answering all the equations by writing a number. Well, I'm not technically wrong. All of these missing tests mean that the real number of infected students could be much higher than 18%. That's why the teachers union voted last week to temporarily return to remote learning until the COVID wave subsides. But before they could, Lightfoot and CPS canceled all classes Wednesday and locked educators out of online learning platforms. Mayor Lightfoot thought it would be better to have no one learn at all than to have her political enemies help kids learn safely. That'll show those teachers trying to assert their rights. Her argument is that remote learning sucks. And the thing is, she's absolutely right. From students struggling with focus to parents scrambling to make sure they have time to watch their kids, remote learning is extremely difficult. This isn't always clear from mainstream media, but teachers really don't like it either. Believe it or not, public school teachers do not relish having to teach their classes over Zoom, where they're powerless to do anything about their students chewing gum, or playing a first-person shooter, trading Bitcoin, or holding someone hostage in a first-person shooter for their Bitcoin. But as bad as remote learning can be, it's still considerably better than turning your classroom into a petri dish for a new COVID variant. Although if you're a biology teacher, that could be a fun lesson. One of the key disagreements between Lightfoot and the CTU is over testing. The union wants a random 10% of the student body to be tested each week to get the most accurate number. But Lightfoot has rejected that proposal. It really does seem as if the mayor wants as few kids to be tested for COVID as possible, as evidenced by the CTU's recent revelation that she's refused help from the state to provide COVID saliva tests. I guess she was concerned about the saliva part. We can't set a precedent where it's suddenly okay for kids to hawk loogies.
Yeah, I don't think
Now, I can't know exactly what's going on in Lori Lightfoot's head, but I do know that more testing would likely result in more confirmed cases, which would then result in more calls to return to remote learning. These are things the teachers union says they need for everyone's health and safety. Therefore, they are things that Mayor Lightfoot really does not want. If the mayor finds out that CTU likes the Chicago White Sox, she could very well wind up rooting for the Minnesota Twins. Lori Lightfoot's vindictiveness knows no bounds. For the past week, she's been on a media offensive, demonizing Chicago teachers, despite their very real concerns that her reckless policies could give way to another easily avoidable outbreak. Knowing what Lightfoot will stoop to, the union has had to relent and reach a tentative agreement that will continue in-person learning for the time being. She may have won this battle, but I don't think this is the last we'll see of the war. For Going Into Labor, I'm Anders Lee with Redacted Tonight.
Redacted Tonight. Always love watching Lee Camp. He's been taking a break a little bit from the show, but they still put out some great stuff, and I kind of wanted to react to that. It's a little intense. I did, as I round things out, I started out with some, moving more to the middle, I guess. And as we go to the middle, Merle does a pretty good show. I don't know who the guy on the right is. He has a different co-host typically, but he's still usually worth a listen to, and he still talks some pretty interesting stuff. And I did check this out earlier today.
Black resources come out and tell us to not demand anything for our vote.
Yeah.
At this point, black people have caught up, bro. Like, we're kind of tired of the Democratic game, I hope.
Yeah, Clyburn. That was Clyburn. Clyburn came out and made that point about Kamala Harris is the gift to blacks or something to that effect. It was some statement like that. It was like, oh, God, that's so cringe. What do you think about, so do you think, look, I don't think this has any chance of passing at all. And I guess maybe the question is, to your point, do you think that that mindset has come back to bite them in a weird way? Meaning they've made it voting rights an issue. And look, I've said it on more than one occasion. I think this has been an issue for for like a decade or longer at this point, at least from my standpoint. But is it one of those issues where the public is looking at now thinking to themselves, well, if you don't get anything done on it, we're going to hold you responsible for it? I mean, we had the caller, Mark, who called in, and his point was like, look, this is a real issue. They are adversely affecting African Americans voting in certain areas of the country. And even if you had the voter ID, if you have to wait in line for 8 hours because they basically have been shutting down your polling locations where you're stuck in the spot, that's not that great either. Or removing people off the voting rolls. I mean, even if you had a voter ID, doesn't necessarily mean you can't get kicked off the voter rolls. Like some of that stuff isn't specific to the ID. I guess my question is, do you think that they're going to be held responsible by African Americans for not getting this through after making this such an issue?
I pray God so.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I would never put it past the American populace to be sheep no matter what their skin color is or where their location is. But I pray God so, because I think the Democrats are just, oh God, they just, my grandma would say, without using the curse words, you're really showing your butt. You're showing your butt now. Crap, these last couple of years, they've shown their butt, like, and it's gotten insane. And the things that they're expecting people to just take on the chin, I hope they do. I hope they are held to. I'm counting on it. I'm pleading for it. I don't even really like the Republican thing, but I'm begging for some Republicans to win. One thing that I would hope more than anything is that people wake up and see what they're doing, because again, these problems that they cite, these things happen in Democrat-ran areas as well. I live in Georgia. In the inner, like Atlanta, our mayor is a Democrat, right? We have a lot of Democrats in power in Georgia, especially in Metro Atlanta, right? But these things still happen. As a matter of fact, the voting areas in the blackest part of town, obviously because of the point of the argument that we're making, are some of the worst areas for voting, and those are run by Democrats in a lot of cases. I don't want to speak that, but it just my point is that these problems that they're citing are problems that they contribute to, and they could solve very easily if they really wanted to. There's no reason for anyone to wait in a crazy line just to vote, especially when you come out here to Gwinnett County and you can just walk into your vote spot and just leave.
Yeah. Brave, my fellow right winger. Thank you for the call. I'm going to correct that. He is an independent just for the air, because otherwise we're going to get another call. Yeah. I better change that. Thank you for the call. Well said. Devo from Atlanta, also from Atlanta. You're on the air. What's up? What's going on?
Good morning. So first, I just want to respond to what Brave was saying. For example, here in Atlanta, he's wrong. Democrats don't control the election booths. Our Secretary of State does. And so when you looked at what happened, for instance, with Brian Kemp, when he was running for governor as the Secretary of State, those lines that were created in Atlanta were created by him. So it's actually not Democrats that are controlling sort of the flow of voting and where voting machines are, what voting places get what number of voting booths, for example. So that's one. And two, sort of, it has been an issue for a while. Like Jamal said, JT's talked about it before he got to Sputnik, voting sort of voter suppression. Like when we went through it with Democrats in Brooklyn dropping voters from the rolls regarding Bernie.
200,000 voters. They kicked off the rolls.
Yeah, that was a big thing. Part of the reason why it's big now, though, is a lot of the voting laws that Republicans are pushing today, they go so far that there are states right now where you can't vote with a VA card. So it's not just a matter of whether or not you have a driver's license, right? They're going to the point where in North Carolina, for instance, if you don't have a if you don't have a traditional state issued ID, but you have, for instance, a SNAP benefit card, you can't vote with a SNAP benefit card. So we're seeing that it's not just about voting, it's about targeting voters, right? Where in Texas, for instance, you can use your concealed weapon permit, you can use that to vote. But you cannot use an ID from the University of Texas, for instance.
Well, you do need to show your license, or you need to show two forms of ID to get your concealed carry anyway. So it would already have had to have hit past that stage. I get what you're saying with you can't show your SNAP benefit card. Sorry, go ahead. You got like 30 seconds left.
I was just going to say, it's the same thing, right, for your SNAP benefit card, or if you're a student at university. Generally, in order to get into university, you have to show like a birth certificate, your transcript
security number,
unopened, for example. Like the college knows who you are, right? Like, so it's not just about knowing who you are. It is about excluding. And like that, I'll end with that quote. I forget which Republican it was, but there was a Republican that Jamal recently played where the Republican goes, I don't want everyone to vote.
Heritage Foundation. Oh, God, I can't think of his name. Weigman? It'll come to me. But thank you for the call, my man. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, their show's called Fall Lines back here. You can find it on some radio stations, depending if you're in major cities or not. But Jamal's a good one if you're watching streams in the morning. He does it's like 6 to 9 in the morning or 7 to 10 in the morning. Got to catch him pretty early. But Fall Lines is worth a watch. And honestly, I took the blunt down while I was trying to get the stream back up and running. That last joint had a nice little resin on it, so I think I am gonna push Cotton through nice and fast. So Tom Cotton, he had some good little streams here coming in the most recentness, and I thought maybe he had a few things I kind of agreed with, so I kind of had to dig into him and make sure that I still dislike this guy. Oh, I do. No. It's just when you dig into people often, you don't want to.
There's a protein shake
on people. And you find Tom Cotton attacking somebody, and he has a couple good things to say, and it's like, right, everybody can say some good stuff. It happens. And it is definitely fun to watch. Our Senator Tom Cotton. Oh. Keep all of this loaded. Take a few minutes to look at him, and it was not that hard to do the Stoney Progressive takedown of this guy. So Tom Cotton, our senator from Arkansas, he takes money from Stevens Inc. as his number one contributor through his last cycle, and he's only a second term senator, so I don't really care about just one cycle. I want the whole, include those first 3 years too. Gotta know where he started from, right? Club for Growth and Stevens Inc. That's what I wanted to see. Club for Growth and Stevens Inc. Club for Growth, a super PAC that is for the promotion of business over government. Like, it wants to cut the government strings and push business. That is what Club for Growth is. It is a massive super PAC that just wants businesses to grow and cut government red tape. So that's what he's paid. That's what his number one contributor is. This retired is individuals, mostly in super PACs and large. That is a lump way to say things. Security Investments is his. Most of the companies, like Stevens Inc., is under a security or an investment company. So all these private wealth management, security traders, and that's where he gets all of his money from. And it is a massive amount that he has pulled up together. He did one tour down in Congress before he went up as senator, and in his 3 campaigns, he's pulled $31 million. He still has $8 million on, or almost, we'll say $8 million on hand. He's probably pushing that away for he's paying somebody right now for something or another. But like I said, that Club for Growth, that is a horrible super PAC, and they don't even actually put his, like, he's not on their site anymore. They've taken him off, and they moved past. He just used their money to get into the scene, and now he has moved on. Good for him. Elliott Management, another one of those securities and wealth management. And Goldman Sachs, always a good one to see. Always a very trusting, and makes me very happy to see that into his money. That's where he gets his money. That's just absolutely fantastic. So Tom Cotton, I really hope Arkansas looks at you. Another thing I just showed you, he gets all of his money from securities, and yet for some reason his base salary at $174,000 since he got into office, his net worth has not increased. Just hasn't increased. He's a top fundraiser. He gets insane amounts of money from big money people, but his wealth has not increased. And whenever I see that, that is the red flag that I need to see. That's the only one I need to see. That is a massive thing. I will always bring it back as a Michigander to Debbie Stabenow. When I saw that, I knew that there was red flags galore. And if you dig in through there, he's on the Armed Service Committee, and he was ex-Army, but he is more of a ex-Army because he wanted to be a politician, not ex-Army career because his family required it. And that is our wonderful Tom Cotton in a quick nutshell. And for anybody in the Stoney Progressive world, I have no idea. When in the Stoney Progressive world, I have to say he is a very bad candidate for the normal cannabis promoters. He does not have anything except for he's okay with states' rights, but he has nothing for the VA doctors. As an ex-military person, I thought he cared about his military brethren, but he doesn't want people to have cannabis if they have PTSD, anxiety, Crohn's disease, I don't know, just all sorts of stuff. He has no concern with that. Allow cannabis business to use banks. He's not even okay with that. So that is Tom Cotton. I wanted to react to that. The first thing, of course, when you look him up in Truthdig is just fantastic. Continuing the NSA surveillance bill, he thinks we need more incarcerations. He's great with more incarcerations. Oh, yeah, this is what you get when you look up Tom Cotton on Truthdig. This is why I looked him up. I thought we should give me a little background on that part.
Olson, on July 28, 2020, you signed a public letter attacking the Trump administration for using Department of Homeland Security officers to help protect the federal courthouse in Portland from violent rioters. That letter stated, quote, plainclothes officers in unmarked vehicles should be used only in limited capacities and clearly identified circumstances. Crowd control is not among those circumstances. Mr. Olson, on January 6, 2021, did the Department of Justice or FBI have any plainclothes officers among the crowd at the Capitol?
Senator, I'm not aware of whether or not there were plainclothes officers in among the crowd at the Capitol on January 6th.
Did any plainclothes officers enter the Capitol on January 6th?
I don't know the answer to that, Senator.
Mr. Olson, I got to say your answers to many questions today are disappointing because they boil down to essentially, I don't know. Did you prepare for this hearing? Did you know this hearing was happening before this morning?
Yeah, again, the only reason I like this is because he's like so abruptly mean. It's hilarious. He's literally like Ted Cruz. That's where he's at. He's at Ted Cruz level. It's great.
The direct answer, yes, I prepared extensively, Senator. Many of the questions are about specific specific facts that I don't have.
Well, I mean, what was the
I do think that one of the most important points that I would emphasize is it's against a general matter. It's not appropriate to comment on ongoing investigations.
Well, I didn't ask you about an ongoing investigation. I just flipped to the cover of my binder here. It says the title of this hearing is the domestic terrorism threat 1 year after January 6th. The Attorney General has repeatedly said this is one of the department's highest priority. You're testifying at a hearing about the domestic terrorism threat 1 year after January 6th, and you can't answer questions about how many people have been charged for events arising out of January 6th. Would you go into a briefing with the Attorney General, your boss, and not be able to answer such basic questions?
On the last question you asked, Senator, over 700 people have been charged in connection with January 6th. About 325 have been charged with serious felonies in connection with attacks on the
10 minutes ago, Senator Cruz asked you this series of questions, and you didn't have the answer. You didn't have the answer for how many people have been charged with violent offenses or nonviolent offenses, and so on and so forth. Have you been given the answer in the last 10 minutes?
I'm sorry if I misunderstood, Senator.
Like, he's such a dick, but he's right. Like, you don't even want to root for him. You want to root against him, but he's actually right in this circumstance.
But I believe that Senator Cruz was asking me about
great politics,
other events, not the January 6th event.
Okay, let's turn to another issue that came up earlier today, Ray Epps. During the January 6th riots last year, Mr. Epps was caught on video several times. He seemed to encourage people to enter the Capitol, to break down police barriers. Video from the rallies, or from the rally down the National Mall early that day shows him doing the same thing. Video even from the night before shows him encouraging people to enter the Capitol. Ray Epps lives in Arizona. He didn't exactly go underground after January 6th. He even gave an interview to local media, and he was well known to the Department of Justice. He was on the FBI's Capitol Riot Most Wanted page just days after January 6th. In fact, he was one of the first 16 suspects added to that Most Wanted page on your website. It does not appear that he's been arrested or charged in any offense. In July, without explanation, he was removed from the FBI's Most Wanted page. Mr. Olson, who is Ray Epps, and why was he removed from the FBI's Most Wanted?
On some of these committees, like Ted Cruz is also right, like, I don't know, 10% of the time. And again, like, politicians, you don't have to agree with anything they say. You can hate them all the time. And every once in a while, they can actually be logical on a subject.
Wanted list.
Senator, I don't have any information about that individual. I would defer to Ms. Sanborn for any additional.
So this is, it gets back to what I meant earlier, like asking if you're prepared for this hearing. You're the Assistant Attorney General for National Security. You run the National Security Division. The department has said that these January 6 prosecutions are one of their highest priorities. This is a man who was on the Most Wanted page for 6 months. Do you really expect us to believe that you've never heard of the name Ray Epps or you don't know anything about him?
I simply don't have any information at all, Senator, about that individual.
What other suspects on the Most Wanted page do you know nothing about?
Senator,
let me ask you this: can you name anyone else on the Department of Justice's Most Wanted page?
I'm sorry. I didn't hear your question.
Can you name anyone else on the Department of Justice's Most Wanted page from the January 6th riots?
I'm not familiar with the Most Wanted page. No, I'm not familiar with that.
All right. Well, I guess we're going to have to seek our answers elsewhere, but this has not been a stellar performance today.
You don't beat your best friend's best time for the second time.
Nice stellar performance today. That's great. I'm sorry. That was why I looked him up. I thought that was a quality bit. This is gonna be a live reaction. I saw this bit and I was like, you know what? I kind of want to know what I want to know what this interaction is. So this is straight live reaction, no concept. What exactly?
Absolutely is not predicting that the 2022 elections would be illegitimate. The point he was raising was both that in 2020, even amongst challenging circumstances, efforts to suppress the vote, and the midst of a pandemic, there was record turnout. Democrats and Republicans, record turnout to go to the polls. He was not making a prediction. He has confidence in the American people, and we're going to do everything we can to protect people's rights.
She didn't touch that race part. In focus now, Republican Senator Tom Cotton of Arkansas, a member of the Senate Judiciary and Armed Services Committees. Good to have you in focus today. First of all, what's your reaction, or what was your reaction initially hearing the president say, oh no, I didn't say that?
Well, Harris, he can get angry and shout and shake his fist at the clouds like Grandpa Simpson as much as he wants. But he said what he said in Atlanta a couple of weeks ago, and it's now widely recognized even by Democrats that it was beyond the pale and that it alienated the senators whose votes he needed, to include Democratic senators who he compared to those segregationists and secessionists, who I would point out are all Democrats, by the way. So no amount of spin is going to change what he said, just like no amount of spin from his underlings today will change the fact that he, in effect, gave Vladimir Putin a green light to invade Ukraine. We saw yesterday why the president's staff generally doesn't let him go out and meet the press.
Well, look, I mean, he looked up there at his watch and he kind of looked back. He made the decision to stay there, and then he threw his press people under the bus and said, oh, thanks a lot for helping me out up here. Wow, those are some really interesting moments behind, you know, when they were trying to clean up on aisle 7 about what you're talking about. Let's get into it. Critics have torn into the president's comments, and they were rather bizarre on Russia as he went on and on and on about an imminent invasion by the Russians into Ukraine. Let's watch a bit.
I think what you're going to see is that Russia will be held accountable if it invades, and it depends on what it does. It's one thing if it's a minor incursion and then we end up having a fight about what to do and not do, etc. My guess is he will move in. He has to do something.
Well, like I said, I mean, it was hard during the press conference to even hear the rest of what he had to say because you're just kind of unpacking that. His critics were quick. They were pouncing on the shift, arguing the president just gave Russia a green light to invade and that no incursion is permissible, or impermissible, I should say, forgive me. Even Ukraine President Zelensky weighed in, tweeting earlier today, there are no minor incursions in small nations, just as there are no minor casualties and little grief from the loss of loved ones. Eventually, White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki clarified the president's comments last hour on America's Newsroom.
The president has conveyed directly to President Putin, if there is the movement of any military troops across the border, that is an invasion. If they go in, that is an invasion, and there will be severe economic consequences.
Look, Senator, she said it. The president didn't say that, though, and it wasn't like he misspoke. He really dissected exactly what he was anticipating and what we should brace for. What do you say about that?
Well, he did, and he spoke at greater length about Ukraine as well. What really matters is not what his underlings claim he said or what his cheerleaders in the Democratic media heard. What matters is what the Ukrainian president heard, and we just heard from him, and most importantly, what Vladimir Putin heard. And what Vladimir Putin heard is that he has a green light to invade Ukraine. And remember, these troops, more than 100,000 Russian troops and sailors, didn't just show up on Ukraine's border in a vacuum. This is happening.
I don't want to be mean, man, but where are our troops at? And we've moved them around, and if every time we moved our troops, the countries that we moved them around to freaked out like we freak out, seriously, this is the thing, right? Like, this is the thing that we know. We know that
in the aftermath of the catastrophic weakness and haplessness that President Biden displayed last August, getting our own people out of Afghanistan. Vladimir Putin saw that, and he saw how President Biden has appeased him for the last year, and he's concluded that now is the time to go for the jugular in Ukraine because Joe Biden cannot lead a unified and strong response from the United States and our European allies.
He couldn't even make it clear what a red line is. Like, you know, we're always looking for that. Well, what's the tipping point of getting us, you know, to lean in with those epic sized sanctions that he's talking about? And what exactly is a minor incursion? I mean, now we're left to watch the people who would be invaded to tell us on Twitter how they feel as targets right now. I mean, it's heartbreaking. And I would say, based on what you just said, really, really bad policy going forward. I want to get to this. Vice President Kamala Harris this morning snapped back when asked to clarify Biden's remarks on Russia and Ukraine.
I will tell you that the president has been very clear, and we as the United States are very clear. If Putin takes aggressive action, we are prepared to levy serious and severe costs.
It is less than clear because 30 minutes after the news conference, the White House press secretary had to actually clarify the president's remarks.
Savannah, I'm being clear with you right now.
Yes, okay.
And so if you're interested, I'll continue.
Oh, she's such a bee. It's great. I'm clear with you right now. Just listen to me and shut your mouth.
Be clear.
Let me shut up.
So they're angry and they're combative, and I don't know if that's as effective as original messaging.
No, well, again, the vice president and the press secretary and all the other White House underlings can go on every TV show they want today.
Oh, you're like Sarah Huckabee was not aggressive. I mean, they're both aggressive. It's hilarious. Just call them both, though. You got to call both sides, man. You're not...
That doesn't change the fact that Joe Biden yesterday got in some kind of academic philosophical debate about what level of invasion into Ukraine might cause a Western response, into some kind of academic debate about why Vladimir Putin is doing what he's doing. He's doing it because Joe Biden is weak and impotent and he thinks he can take advantage of him. The last time we had a Democratic president, Vladimir Putin invaded Ukraine as well. But, you know, for 4 years of Republican president and former President Trump, Vladimir Putin didn't invade Ukraine. Why do we think that is, despite the Democrats yelling Russia, Russia, Russia for 4 years? It's because Putin understood that Donald Trump, like Republicans, are strong, and we stand by our allies and partners around the world.
You know, it's interesting. I don't think we've talked this much about Russia since that time, right? And it was all over the place as they went after Trump and so on and so forth. But now all eyes are on this president.
Republicans like big wars. Democrats like tons of small wars. I don't know what he's talking about. They're both owned by Halliburton, Raytheon, Boeing, General Dynamics. This is who owns our politicians. And Tom Cotton's one of them. But I'm glad we got to circle full back around. That kind of completes that nice section. And I think leaves me an opportunity to set up my final segment of the night. And finishing out here on the right side of things, I'm gonna have to listen to the one right side I usually listen to. I don't listen to Fox News to get my right side of news. I typically listen to We Are Change. He used to be very reasonable. Since COVID, he has started saying things like DeSantis is great, and literally I get rallies and protest emails, and I've gotten several from libertarians wanting to protest DeSantis because he's really bad for protesting and freedom of speech. He's all for cracking down on freedom of speech, not having anybody have really any say in things. So no, he's not a libertarian style Republican. And when these libertarians or fake libertarians, I guess I should say, kind of libertarians, I don't know. There are definitely extremes of every ism or such. But Luke of We Are Change is not so bad. He was way better before COVID. He used to go out, be on the streets, go into many places, and if you look him up, he's been to his like signature show there. I don't know if I'll scroll down and see it or not. No, but his signature thing was he went to Epstein's Island right after Epstein was first arrested, before he was killed, and that was pretty good. Can't do that right now, man. So I'm gonna watch this while I set up the next last thing.
I know what a coward looks like. Why did you go? You're going to fight for your own freedom. This is your fight, NYPD. This is your fight, NYPD. This is your fight, NYPD. This is your fight as well. We stand with you. Foreign or domestic. I want to know their name. You are traumatizing a little child.
This is fucking disgusting.
Yeah, absolutely insane. That is the brave NYPD that cannot stop robberies and other crimes, arresting mainly people of color, including a child, because they tried to visit the American Museum of Natural History and they didn't get government permission and didn't have their medical records in order to do so. That's the world that we're living in right now. But for how long is the question? Welcome back, beautiful and amazing human beings. This is Luke Radowski here of WeAreChange.org, and we're going to be trying to answer that question here today, especially with the latest numbers coming from the United Kingdom and the United States, where we have two exact opposite approaches right now, as truly what the United Kingdom just did is absolutely groundbreaking and is creating the dam to break, even though there's some absolute sociopaths that are hell-bent on creating as much chaos as they can from this situation that is diminishing right in front of them. We're going to be talking about that, plus a lot more. Lots of crazy Russian news, but before we do, the clip that we played in the beginning of this video is by @L2FTV. Never heard of these guys, but hey, check them out. They showed us some really important videos that the world needs to see, and I definitely do believe Michael Malice's comment here is the spiciest one, with other people commenting that if this was a riot or a looting, the NYPD would of course look the other way, just like they have routinely done so. Now, comparatively, the situation in New York City is almost as bad as America's foreign policy, as Joe Biden, the President of the United States, just a few hours ago held a press conference where he virtually invited Russia to invade Ukraine, essentially saying that Russia will be attacking Ukraine, and that if there's a minor incursion, there will be consequence reflect against the many clear failures of this administration, which Joe Biden has been calling, quote, progress, to the point where even the corporate media, his allies that put him in power, are criticizing him for his clear about in just a little bit. But as some people are calling them mistakes, I think they're deliberate actions that of course benefit the special interests that really do call the shots behind the scenes, the suits that are truly in power, that of course are using Joe Biden essentially as a puppet to push through some of the most unpopular policies that we have ever seen in our current American political system, as the ruling establishment is literally going for broke with some of the biggest, most aggressive moves we have seen, all done under the disguise of an aging old man who is not there. Now, the Ukrainian situation is an utter disaster, especially for the people of Ukraine, especially with a lot of the people in the international community seeing Afghanistan as a perfect example of American foreign policy. The Biden administration has had to issue another statement after Biden's first statement, saying that of course they will protect Ukraine at all costs, that there allegedly would be a swift response. Ukrainian politicians are of course very pissed off on his statements about a minor incursion, which would mean the invasion of their country. And all of this is happening as of course many CIA agents are going into Ukraine along with U.S. Special Operation Forces and a lot of military hardware, as reported by CBS News, that, quote, the United States is rushing weapons into Ukraine right now. This whole situation will most likely unfold in a limited conflict, a doctrine, of course, proposed originally by individuals like Henry Kissinger that has already seen similar situations currently unfold in Syria, in Yemen, and in other places around the world, where, of course, global powers fight each other through proxies, protecting, of course, against mutual assured destruction, but still feeding the beast of the military-industrial complex as much as they can, as of course everyone still pays the price for this conflict, which is absolutely unnecessary in my opinion. And geopolitically, strategically, I believe the United States is making...
So he just, like, I completely disagreed and agreed with him in a 4-minute piece of moments. Like, I haven't watched this yet. I haven't actually watched Luke since he started going on Tim Pool's show on a regular basis. And he came down to Florida and started saying DeSantis was great. Lost respect for him on that. But his old stuff is fantastic. When he used to go to, he's been to Ethiopia. Like I said, he's been to the Pedo Island there. He's done some good stuff. Since he did I'm just spiteful at the moment. That's why I'm giving him a shot today. While I set up the last segment But I'm gonna keep going with him. He goes back and forth with me, and that's what he always does. You know, somebody you don't agree with. It's good to listen to people you don't agree with on a regular basis. Try to be okay with it. And Luke is a good one to do it.
Making a grave mistake, especially since a conflict in Ukraine would trigger another one that would most likely happen in, of course, Taiwan, with the Chinese and Russians being brought closer together under the current scope of the foreign policy and geopolitical system that has been deployed on the world stage. I would even go further and to speculate that this deliberate blunder or mismanagement of this entire geopolitical situation might be done deliberately in order to destroy the global influence of the United States, which some would argue already received irreversible damage with the atrocities committed in Afghanistan, where the policy literally built up that country to specifically mine materials for batteries, which China is now coming in, harvesting, and using for their, of course, electric car production, which the United States is mandating that they will be a customer of. And the more you start paying attention to American foreign policy, the more you just start shaking your head in absolute absurdity of belief with how incredulous it is. I still have a lot more to say about this topic. I'm going to save it for later because we still got a lot of very important information to get into. And of course, I'm going to be doing another video later on today on the bigger topic of how our young people are absolutely robbed and corrupted in many surprising ways. We're doing a deep dive into the larger social issues that affect us the most later on today on LukeUncensored.com, our very own platform. I hope to see you there. The videos are, of course, released every day through our email list. Make sure to sign up. It's free right here. And you get a notification whenever we have our main YouTube video and Luke Uncensored video come out. Click the link down in the description below to find out more. And truly, if you haven't signed up yet, what are you waiting for? As of course, I've been focusing a lot of my efforts, even more than I do on my YouTube channel, specifically on our own platform. This is the way of the future. This is how we beat all the nonsense coming our way. Not just survive it, but thrive.
Talking over them like that, but yeah, there's so much to go through in a day, right? You can only go through so much. I take a break from people from time to time. It's good to take from everybody. I take one from Jimmy from time to time.
Approaches towards this global sickness, and just to quickly use a corporate example of this, you have the Carhartt approach, and then of course you have the Starbucks approach that are currently being exemplified and deployed in different countries depending on which policy they favor. Carhartt, for example, is facing massive blowback, and a lot of people and organizations calling for their boycott, as the urban hipster and rural workers clothing brand just issued a statement to all of its Michigan-based company employees, 5,500 of them total, to be compliant with Biden's mandates that were recently overthrown by the Supreme Court, mandating them to take a procedure that there's no going back from, that some people don't need, and that clearly don't really have an effect on the global number of cases around the world. So after the Supreme Court just threw this mandate down, why would you implement your workers to do this or threaten to fire them if they don't? That's a ridiculous policy that absolutely makes no sense at all. And that, of course, is the Carhartt policy compared to, of course, Starbucks policy, which just announced that they're ending any kind of mandate.
And as somebody who can personally attest to this, they end the mandate weeks after you had to have already had it or been basically having to stay at home. And I don't know, like, so it's too late already. Like, people have been, like, I guess there must be some stores that have had people at home, but the personal experience on this is most of the people have already had to get vaccinated to keep working. That was weeks ago, and now that they're ending it, it's like it's already been implemented. Like, these people have already had to at least get one shot to be on the floor.
Mandate within their business structure, and they're going to be following the Supreme Court's ruling in the United States, and of course not disrupting or trying to fire their workers for a personal medical decision. And now 9,000 U.S. coffee shops and close to 200,000 workers won't be extorted or manipulated or discriminated against for their own personal decisions of what they want to do with their bodies. Now, these are two different corporations, two different approaches, which is perfectly represented, in my opinion, with the exact approaches of what the United States is doing.
But they're reversing something they already did, man. Like that was already implemented, and now they're reversing it backwards. So it's a moot point. Like, what's your point there? That Carhartt is a little behind Starbucks on the fact that they're doing something that Biden said and they're doing it. That doesn't make any sense, man. Starbucks isn't good on this. They've already done it. They've already said you can't work if you weren't mandated, so you're behind. So there are some that, okay.
Doing compared to, of course, the United Kingdom. In the United States, the Biden administration is...
Well, that is interesting to know. I know the lag here might be interesting, but yeah, I did not know that. That's interesting. I did not know that, yeah, so I figured that must be the case, that Starbucks rescinded it because they needed, there's areas that people won't work, and rural areas that they couldn't force that, but having personal experience down here, they're all full go still, and everybody has just accepted it and or stayed off the floor for a little while.
Still hell-bent on trying to stop this sickness, which of course they have done an atrocious job at and have completely failed at doing so, to the point where the Biden administration is taking people's tax dollars and buying 400 million plus tests along with 400 million plus masks. And of course, the corporate media is saying that these are going to be free tests and masks. They're not. We're paying for it in one way or another, since of course the US government is buying it. And of course, we'll probably do an awfully horrible job in distributing it to the general public, just like they did with the stimulus checks. They couldn't even get that right. But having a mask for one day, getting a test for one day, what is that going to help with our current situation with this variant? That's a question that a lot of people are asking, as of course, England has just announced that they're dropping virtually all of their lockdowns, restrictions, and mandates, specifically when it comes to this sickness. A major move, an extremely significant domino that has fallen, that of course will be impacting other places like the Czech Republic, that also just announced that a domestic passport system is absolute nonsense, as declared by their political leadership that just ended it, even though this policy is being...
A little personal side note again, that Czech Republic, there's a rich person that owns a house on the Isle that I work at, which is a very high-end Isle in Florida here, that told me that he has houses in Czech Republic, Germany, and Florida because they are the most open places. His houses in Germany, but then Czech Republic and Florida were because they are the most open places, and that way he could possibly travel. So if things get crazy and locked down, he knows he can get to one of his homes that will be open and calm. So I'm sure he is happy, because I think he had to be in Europe for a while for work. So
continued in New York City. Also, very interestingly, in the United Kingdom, there's a major medical journal demanding that all data surrounding this procedure that governments have been mandating be made public and released immediately, as of course a lot of people have some very serious questions to what is actually going on here, since of course a lot of the data surrounding this procedure, surrounding the effects of this procedure, surrounding the data of how it was implemented, the studies beforehand, by and large have been hidden from the general public. Now we have a major medical institution calling for all the raw data to be released. What are we going to find out from that raw data? I don't know, but I bet it's probably good.
He always wears like his own shirts on the show, like almost always. It's kind of funny. I guess that started a lot more since he moved to the Tim Pool show, and he does that big stream on a regular basis. But he is wearing one of his ridiculous, crazy shirts, which There's a few of them that are pretty cool. I almost bought, but
Going to be surprising. And we're even reaching a point where the World Health Organization is calling for international travel restrictions to be lifted, as of course many places around the world like South Africa that have dealt with this new variant are what many people say are in the clear and are finished with this nonsense. Also, comparatively, if you look at the numbers in the United Kingdom, they are following the numbers in the United States, just 1 week behind, with the numbers dramatically declining in the United Kingdom and expected to rapidly decline from here. According to a lot of analysts, the numbers will continue to drastically go down in the United States, in the United Kingdom, signaling, of course, the end of this nonsense. Are we done? Are we in the clear? Well, no. There's still some bureaucrats that are just hell-bent on fear, destruction, and chaos, as Dr. Fauci is warning that this is not going to be over anytime soon. The Biden administration is implementing possibly more border restrictions, as of course Canada is dramatically impacting the global supply chain with, of course, mandates on truckers, which have started a lot of major protests, which you haven't really heard about. And in the United States, just so people don't see how absolutely horrible the situation is, now container ships are told to wait 150 miles offshore in order to, quote, ease air quality issues. Yeah, financially, the situation is grim. It's not looking good, even though we might be over.
Yeah, so he was my go-to right to find some balance. I probably moved more on to Whitney Webb as somebody to take in. She is a massive expert on Epstein, but also kind of a true libertarian, where he was more of a libertarian and has kind of shifted more to the DeSantis pro-Trump, pro-post-Trump, or something. I don't know. I didn't exactly watch the shift that close, but he used to be on the ground, and anybody that's on the ground is worth checking out. If he gets back on the ground, I'll be back all over it, because on the ground journalism is where you actually find people. So find people like Abby Martin. Ava Bartlett is a libertarian right-ish person. She's on the ground in the Middle East. She's worth watching. Vanessa Beeley is also considered a libertarian. So you can find good people on the right who are actually on the ground, not just sitting in their cheap apartment and trying to find good stories. Check out. But I'm definitely going to be dropping those clips. I want to build up my arsenal for this primary and election year, and have them ready in my arsenal for all these wonderful elections coming up. And finishing off the day, kind of, he went into it a bit, but strikes and rallies around the country. Let's see how this goes. And we will start out a Stoney Progressive Strikers of the Day. Just taking a look around, and there's definitely some people. What am I using? Right now I'm using XSplit Broadcast. I tried a few out. And this was the one that, the free one I can actually handle, and it's an old laptop, so I mean, I have like a dozen plugins and stuff. If I want to upgrade, I'm going to have to upgrade the whole system, and I'm not spending any money on this. So right now, XSplit Broadcast is a free program that does pretty good work. I can't even screen share on some of them without having to spend money. So this one is the only one I can screen share, show you guys things, and not have to spend a ton of money. And I got my strikers up. So a Stoney Progressive striking review. This is a grocery store over in the Southwest, prominently in California, touching parts of Nevada and Arizona. couple days old. And yeah, that's a great way to end this clip. Well, this part. Kroger bosses don't keep our communities fed. That's the workers. And that goes for everybody. The workers are the ones that produce the labor that runs things. These owners that are off-site and just abstracting wealth, they don't do anything. And so when people want fair wages for their life, for their liveliness, this is what's going to happen. And it's going to be, it was huge in October. If you look on now, it's still going on, even though they're trying to lock us down. They're trying to get us to stay home. Strikes will continue to happen. That's a grocery store in California. We've got concrete workers in the state of Washington.
So they're out here this morning, and these concrete workers acknowledge that, but they're saying they're really just fighting for equal pay and equal benefits. So they're out here this morning. Over 300 concrete workers are on strike. I would say about 100 are here this morning outside of AGC headquarters, just standing their ground. Their messages on their signs say things like, "Tell the truth," and "Why are you defending bad behavior?" So Teamsters Local 174, the union representing these workers, is saying these large construction companies are trying to force a package on workers that would be significantly less compared to other construction workers in Seattle. So because of the ongoing demonstrations, Seattle's $23 billion construction industry has paused without concrete. Some companies have been laying off workers, saying they have no choice because there's no work for them. In the meantime, there are reports that both sides are far from reaching an agreement, but workers tell us they want to go back. Listen in.
Yeah, they're saying that we don't want to come to the table and talk. And that's just simply not true. We've been trying to get to the table to talk for a couple months. We got the owners of the companies and flying back to Italy for Christmas while we're out on strike, trying to get talks, trying to get this resolved. We just want to get back to work.
Seattle, King County, and the Washington State Department of Transportation are hoping both sides come together soon. They warn if this continues, this could delay critical ongoing construction projects that include the construction of roads, bridges, light rail guideways, and more. The secretary and treasurer of Teamsters Local 174 is saying if workers accept the package offered, wages, health care, and retirement would decrease in compensation over 3 years if you take inflation into account. So this morning,
it's actually a really smart way of doing it, just having people kind of pace around, just heavily pace around a couple blocks, because you see a lot of these strikes right now, they crack down on where you're allowed. They don't give you permits for places. They push the permit so far away that it's irrelevant, and you become obsolete, and they destroy it. And then of course they're putting infiltrators in there already. So the pacing around idea, I have no idea how much your group has to be moving, how thin your group has to be to still pull this off, but that's a really good way.
there are about at least 100 concrete workers out here. They say they really do want to get back to work, but they're saying they're going to fight for what they believe in, and that is just fair and equal pay and benefits. Live here in Seattle, Kiara Elfallen, King 5 News.
See that bright brain full of activity?
We need a
That's
general strike.
18-year-old brain.
That was my third section of more strikers, more people. Long Beach.
School districts say they are considering a strike this morning. That's if they don't get a raise.
What are we? What are we?
Dozens of workers held a protest last night after labor negotiations broke down. Employees say their salary hasn't increased since 2018. They want a 7% raise. The district is also responding to their demands.
The money's there.
Help us. We're in a bad economy right now. We need to be able to survive here.
That the district offered CSEA the same compensation package that we offered our teachers on April 13th of 2021. That included a 5% raise. That 5% raise was declined. We believe that that was a fair amount.
Employees are saying, run me my coins. All right, the workers are also asking for $2,200 in hazard pay. In response, the district says it is offering a competitive compensation package.
Of course they're going to say that's just, what? Say that? That's ridiculous. Okay. So yeah, that was the strike clips I wanted to bring up. I do want to try this one thing live. See if I can pull this off. So Google News even. Thank you so much, Google. I did this earlier on a couple sites. They of course didn't show anybody on Amazon strikers that's been going on for quite a while now. And I don't know why they wouldn't show that in their first section here, but here we go. I thought this was pretty good. Little review about, didn't click on anything, about where we are in today's striking world. So you have the construction workers in Seattle we just talked about. There's also some Portland City workers. You have Georgia social workers as well. Smoothly. That was the Long Beach ones that we just saw. And you know, there's no show there of the Amazon workers who have been on strike constantly. King Swoop that I already showed you. So yeah, just even looking to see where strikes are happening, you're going to get censored, and that's of course what's going to happen. There's no way around it, and so socially networking and trying to find who's on strike. I'm on a couple rally sites that they send me anything that there's a protest or a rally. They let me know, and I will continue to have my feet. The Blackout Network, they do really good work with striking unions. Romeo, I believe, is what his name is. He goes to, he's been down with the Kellogg's workers in southern Michigan there. He goes down to St. Louis. He goes over anywhere that people are striking, and there's weekly shows on that on Saturday. And yeah, there's strikes happening right now. It is continuing, and we just got to continue to keep our awareness of it, keep pushing and fighting, and fight the powers, and that's all we can do. And that's all I had prepared today. That's all the energy I got. So I'm gonna smoke another one. I'm out of rolled ones, and let's keep it stony. Let's keep it progressive, and I will try to burn through some news the next night I get off. I am a outside bartender this week, so it's supposed to be cold and rainy like it is everywhere else. Well, cold and rainy here. So I will try to throw another live stream together here in the next couple of days on my next day off when I get called off. And outside of that, it's been a pleasure to pull a 2-hour stream. Took a half hour to get there, but I got it through it. Stoney Progressive out, and let's do it again soon.